Never did I foresee that a single weekend by the lake would dismantle all my preconceived notions of love, family, and loyalty. We were meant to be in a state of celebration. Frank, my husband of 2 decades, had reserved the cabin months in advance. Rachel, our daughter, returned home from college, while Zach, our adopted son, made his way up directly from his new job in the city. The cabin radiated warmth, laughter danced in the air, the fire crackled softly, and the enticing aroma of pine mingled with the savory scent of grilled steaks. For a fleeting instant, the world seemed to align in a state of near perfection. It was only then that I noticed Zach, his gaze fixed on me from the other side of the room. It was more than a mere glance. It remained a haunting presence. A stirring began deep within me. I dismissed it naturally. I found it necessary. Zach had been a part of our lives since he was just 16, troubled and withdrawn. Yet we embraced him and nurtured him as if he were our own. I had observed his transformation into manhood, a virtuous individual, powerful, soft and soothing. Yet, when our gazes intertwined once more, I perceived a shift in the air. Perhaps it was I who had transformed. On that night, while the family gathered around to toast marshmallows under the stars, I found myself alone by the kitchen sink, gazing into the shadowy outline of the woods. I convinced myself it was merely the wine. A wave of nostalgia washes over me, the manner in which Frank scarcely cast his gaze in my direction these days. Yet, a change had occurred. In the stillness of that lake house, where moonlight filtered through the aged window panes and Zach's soft footsteps echoed behind me, I felt it. At that moment, I was unaware that we had crossed the threshold from which there was no turning back. I am known as Linda. This past spring, I celebrated my 53rd birthday, yet many still perceive me as being in my mid-40s, a testament to my fortunate genetics and a diligent skincare regimen. For 2 decades, I have shared my life with Frank as his spouse. 2 decades of serene, dignified existence. A marriage that evokes admiration from those who observe it from afar. Yet everything changed after the affair. Frank serves as a judge, calm, articulate, and held in high regard by those in our community. He's the sort of man who effortlessly weaves Hemingway's words into conversation as he pours your coffee, all the while maintaining the charming habit of opening doors for women. However, 2 years prior, I unearthed the truth of his infidelity with a younger colleague from the courthouse. Came to a close. He offered his apologies. He returned, and I welcomed him back, for that is the duty of a wife. Is it not? Yet, a fracture formed within me. Despite my relentless efforts to piece it back together, the edges stubbornly refused to align as they once had. And then we have Zach. At the age of 16, he arrived to stay with us. An idea conceived by Frank, following the tragic overdose of Zach's mother, leaving him without anyone to look after him. In those days, his words were few and far between. Only a set of cautious eyes and a duffel bag infused with the scent of transient lodgings. Yet, as time passed, he transformed. He revealed his thoughts. He thrived. At the age of 22, Zach possesses a captivating presence that demands attention. Slender and statuesque, exuding a subtle assurance that captures attention effortlessly. And of late, his gaze upon me has shifted, as though he has stumbled upon a sight that Frank has long since forgotten. Our daughter, Rachel, has an eye for detail that captures everything around her. She has always been that way. She has returned from college as keen as ever, and her trust is hard-won, particularly when it comes to Zach. Perhaps it is an innate sense. Perhaps it stems from envy. Or perhaps she perceives the tempest that is quietly brewing just below the surface. What I failed to understand at that time was this. The fissures in my marriage were not merely lines. They were gateways waiting to be explored. As fate would have it, a figure was already making their way through. It is often said that forgiveness is a matter of choice. Yet, the silence that follows the utterance of those words remains unexamined. Following Frank's affair, I told them I forgave him. At the very least, I claimed that I did. We navigated the routine. Therapy sessions, leisurely strolls, dinners filled with courteous dialogue. He even brought home flowers for a time, as if he were attempting to turn back the clock. Yet the bond we once shared, the silent warmth, the gentle touches, the looks that conveyed so much, never returned. We lay side by side in the same bed, yet it felt as though an expanse of frigid sheets stretched between us, creating an unbridgeable distance. Gradually, the quiet that enveloped us became a source of ease, excessively cozy, as if two longtime companions were pretending to share a home. It was at that moment that Zach came back into focus for me. It was never a matter of intention. Initially, not at all. It's the small gestures, a soft touch on my back as someone glides past me in the kitchen, his genuine inquiry about my sleep, coupled with his patient anticipation for my response, or the manner in which he'd observe me from a distance, convinced I was oblivious to his gaze. In the space where Frank had grown aloof, Zach remained ever watchful. Here it is. He observed the moment I transformed my hair, praised the hue of my blouse. They chuckled at my tales as if they held significance. Yet, it ought to have held no significance. It truly ought not to have. Yet, after months, years of existing in the shadows of my own home, the warmth of Zach's gaze rekindled the sensation of being truly seen. More unfortunate, it filled me with a sense of belonging. I started crafting reasons to linger in his presence. As I folded the laundry, I was acutely aware of his presence in the den. Beginning the evening meal ahead of time, eagerly anticipating the sound of his footsteps as he arrives home. Each time he regarded me as if I were someone deserving of attention, I sensed that familiar ache in my chest transform, like a part of me was stirring from a prolonged, frigid slumber. And after a long stretch of time, I found a sense of companionship. On the second day of the journey, it unfolded. After breakfast, we embarked on a hike. Rachel took the lead, Frank trailed a few paces behind her, and Zach settled in beside me. The path meandered through towering pines, still glistening from the rain that had fallen the night before. The air was invigorating, the sort that refreshes your very breath. We had vowed not to separate, yet, in some inexplicable twist of fate, Zach and I found ourselves veering off course along the trail. Before we fully grasped the situation, the sky had already started to transform. A deep, resonant rumble of thunder reverberated across the hills. As the clouds surged in like an unstoppable tide, we discovered refuge in a weathered ranger's cabin, forsaken, yet resilient. The roof dripped softly, and the windows bore the marks of time, layered in dust, yet the space remained dry and serene. Zach ignited a modest blaze with the emergency logs, and we gathered closely around it, seeking refuge from the tempest outside. Initially, our words remained unspoken. I just heard the wind wail through the crevices in the walls. In that moment, Zach shattered the stillness. He spoke of his mother, reflecting on the solitary nights he endured prior to Frank's arrival in his life. There were moments when he still sensed that he had yet to find his true place in the world, and I paid heed. Then I recounted the tale of Frank's affair to him. Though I offered him forgiveness, a part of me had withered away. There are nights when I find myself lying awake next to him, enveloped in a solitude deeper than any I experienced during my single days. As I glanced upward, I found Zach's gaze fixed upon me, not with pity, but with a warmth that enveloped the moment. Profound essence. As I extended my hand for another log, our fingers brushed together, a fleeting moment of unexpected connection. We remained intertwined, neither of us willing to break the connection. The atmosphere hung heavy in the space between us. The room seemed to contract, leaving only the distance between our fingertips. And then, Rachel's voice resonated through the air, summoning us by name. We retreated swiftly, rose as if the world had remained unchanged. Yet something had indeed transpired. Though our words remained unspoken, we were both aware. The final evening at the lakehouse had arrived. All had succumbed to the allure of an early night. Overindulgence in sun and wine had taken its toll. The hallway lights cast a muted glow, and the cabin had succumbed to a profound stillness, a tranquility that only the embrace of the woods could provide. I lingered in the kitchen, arranging dishes, cleansing surfaces, attempting to untangle the thoughts that had been swirling relentlessly since the storm. The stillness enveloped me like a warm embrace, weighty yet recognizable. Suddenly, I became aware of footsteps trailing behind me. Zach. Initially, he remained silent. I casually strolled over, grabbed a towel, and began to dry the wine glasses, all without a single prompt. We flowed together, as if we had rehearsed this dance countless times prior. Perhaps we shared meals, celebrations, anniversaries. Yet it had never experienced such a sensation. I offered him a glass, and our fingers lightly grazed each other. This time I remained steadfast. He did not either. Our gazes intertwined. In that fleeting instant, it felt as though the very walls of the room were closing in. The sole sound that filled the air was the gentle drip of water from the faucet, accompanied by the distant, melodic hum of cicadas serenading the night beyond the window. Zach placed the glass down with deliberate slowness. His eyes remained locked onto mine. Then he drew closer, and I allowed him to proceed. His lips were warm, hesitant at first, yet I made no move to deter him. I was unable to. My hand grazed the nape of his neck, and in an instant, the kiss intensified, fervent, yearning, as if it were a desire we had both restrained for far too long. The soft creak of a door echoing down the hall pulled us away from our moment. We stood still, caught in the moment. The rhythm of my heart echoed in my ears, a thunderous beat that felt as if it could resonate through the very floor beneath me. Zach retreated, his breath uneven, his chest heaving beneath the fabric of his t-shirt. "I ought to," he murmured. "Yeah," I replied hastily, already beginning to retreat. Yet, for a complete 10 seconds, neither of us made a single move. For despite our deepest desires to feign otherwise, we had traversed the threshold, yet we found ourselves unable to unravel it. Upon returning, the familiar sights greeted me, unchanged and steadfast. Yet there was nothing. The atmosphere seemed to thicken in an almost palpable way. Each chamber paused in anticipation. As we gathered around the dinner table, I caught Zach's furtive glances, his eyes seeking mine whenever Frank's attention wavered. In those fleeting moments, I felt that familiar electric jolt surge through me once more, the very sensation that had ignited with that kiss. A fleeting touch as we brushed past each other in the hallway. A towel he abandoned in my laundry basket, still moist, exuding a subtle fragrance of cedar and soap. It was understated. Silence, perilous, as if twirling on the sharpness of a knife. Rachel observed. First, she remained silent. "I have just finished watching." Her gaze held a momentary weight, stretching beyond the ordinary. She began to distance herself from Zach, missing family dinners, and securing her bedroom door. It was one afternoon when I stumbled upon her in the kitchen, her arms wrapped firmly around her chest. "I'm not foolish," she declared. Her voice exuded tranquility, yet her eyes, oh, her eyes burned with an intense fervor. "I notice the way your gaze lingers on him." I parted my lips to refute the claim, yet the words lingered like dust on my tongue. Nothing emerged. She stood there, her head shaking in disbelief. "Oh, mother, he isn't truly your son. It doesn't diminish its severity." She burst through the door, leaving no room for words to escape my lips. And then, just as I believed I had the spiral under control, Frank arrived home ahead of schedule. The hour was late. I had promised myself that I would merely take a moment to see how Zach was doing. He was not in good spirits. "I have brought tea." A deception so fragile it unraveled the instant he swung the door open and I crossed the threshold. Zach kissed me as if the ashes of our past were nothing but distant memories. The sound of the front door went unnoticed by me. I failed to catch the sound of approaching footsteps. Yet, the stillness enveloped me as Frank paused in the hallway, pivoted. He lingered in the threshold. The suit lay rumpled. A briefcase swung from his grasp. His expression remained unperturbed, simply tumbled down, and a part of me shattered alongside it. Frank remained silent. He simply pivoted, exited through the door, and vanished into the darkness of the night. The roar of his tires tearing away from the gravel lingers in my mind, more resounding than any scream ever could. I dialed his number. Time and time again, silence prevails. The moment the knock echoed through the stillness of the night, just after 3 a.m., an unsettling realization washed over me. Something was amiss. A state trooper lingered in the doorway, hat clutched in hand, his expression a mask of inscrutability. An accident has occurred, he stated. A solitary vehicle. He veered away from the interstate, just past the bridge. He lives, yet teeters on the brink of despair. The hospital exuded an unsettling chill. Excessively radiant, Frank lay tethered to a network of machines, his body marked by bruises and blood, a bandage encircling his head, his left leg encased in a cast. His right hand, his hand of creation, quivered uncontrollably at intervals. I remained there, mere inches away from him, yet he never cast a glance in my direction. Silence reigned. News of it spread like wildfire within hours. A steamed judge in serious condition following late-night collision. Reports indicate possible marital scandal. No names were necessary. The gossip columns painted a vivid picture of the unfolding drama. My visage graces the forums. My name dances in hushed conversations. Once friendly neighbors now retreat behind closed blinds, their waves replaced by silence. Without a single word, Rachel departed. Filled a bag, erased me from every list of connections. And Zach, who once regarded me as the sole beacon in the room, fell silent. Remote, he lingered in the night's embrace, received calls in the garage, ceased to meet my gaze over breakfast. The stillness enveloped everything, heavy and oppressive. What of the guilt? It thundered within me, a powerful force akin to a freight train surging through my chest. The match had been set by me, ignited the flames, witnessed the flames consume the life I had painstakingly crafted over the years. As the haze dissipated, all that remained was emptiness. Zach returned 3 weeks following the accident, without a hint of forewarning. No apologies offered. The mere sound of his key turning in the lock echoed through the air, as if time itself had stood still. He appeared unchanged, hair disheveled, skin glowing from the sun, a self-assured charm lingering in the arc of his grin. He set his bag down by the door and swung open the fridge as if he were still at home. "I've missed you," he remarked, reaching for a bottle of water. "The last time our paths crossed, you seemed enveloped in solitude." I chose not to respond. Not immediately. For some reason, a change had occurred within me. Perhaps it was the stillness that enveloped the vacant dwelling. Perhaps it was the emptiness in Frank's gaze at the hospital. Perhaps it was the tremor in Rachel's voice as she declared she never wished to lay eyes on me again. Yet, in that instant, observing Zach navigate the space with an air of ownership, I perceived it. Everything. The art of manipulation. The moment has arrived. He had an uncanny ability to know precisely what to say, how to touch, and the perfect moment to look. "You were fully aware of your actions," I murmured. "Beginning at the very beginning." Zach faced me, his expression a complete enigma. "Do you believe I compelled you? You all but pleaded for it." I recoiled. He advanced with measured intent. "You found yourself in a state of ennui. I merely happened to be the nearest source of warmth." Those words, they descended with the precision of blades. A constriction gripped my throat, yet my spine remained resolute. "No," I replied, serene, concluding. "Leave." Zach let out a hearty laugh. "Surely you can't be serious." "I do," I replied, moving past him to the door and swinging it open wide. "At last, I truly do." He fixed his gaze on me for a moment, a glint of something piercing flickering in his eyes, and then he departed. In an instant, there is no conflict. There is no farewell. There will be no apologies offered. And at long last, after all this turmoil unfolded, a sense of purity enveloped me. I departed before the first light of dawn. No note provided. There is no farewell. A simple suitcase containing a handful of clothing, a faded photograph of Rachel from her 6th year, and the wedding ring that had remained untouched for more than a year. The air in the therapist's office was infused with the soothing scent of lavender, mingling with the musty aroma of aged books. Dr. Langford refrained from making judgments. She merely absorbed the words spoken around her. Week after week, I discovered layers of myself I never imagined I would unveil, refusing to be defined by circumstances. Not an antagonist, merely adrift. The apartment I chose to rent was quite compact. 2 rooms and a window that gazed out upon a tangle of telephone wires. Yet, a profound stillness enveloped the surroundings. For a woman such as myself, silence was a blessing. I prepared a meal for myself. I strolled forward, my gaze fixed ahead, unburdened by the need to glance back. Inhaled a bit more profoundly with each passing day. I found no absence of Zach in my thoughts. Not quite, yet. I longed for the person I believed I was in his presence. Yearned for. Noted. Months passed before I finally ceased the endless replay of it all. It was an even longer stretch before I ceased the habitual checking of my phone. Then the envelope arrived, of a soft, creamy hue. Thick cardstock. My name inscribed in flawless block letters. Zach initiated a civil lawsuit. Subtle coercion of feelings. Transgression of limits. Disparity of power. Included were screenshots. Messages trimmed and presented without their full context. His testimony asserted that I had compelled him. Capitalized on his weakness. Exploited a young man who is still navigating the complexities of childhood trauma. The irony was almost enough to elicit a chuckle from me. Almost. My lawyer referred to it as a character assassination attempt. He was determined to stand his ground, to unveil Zach for who he truly was. Yet, I found myself weary of the endless struggle. With a hushed resolve, I affixed my signature to the settlement papers. Silence from the media. No tribunal. Only one more box has been packed. Another address fades into the past. I was not in the act of running. I found myself shedding. A life that had become a stranger to me. A woman I had outgrown. Not every tale concludes with a sweeping gesture of remorse. Not every wound finds its closure. Not every mother finds forgiveness. Rachel vanished from my life, leaving no trace behind. Her number is no longer in service. Her social media presence was devoid of content. I have dispatched letters, scores of them. A few words of apology. Some merely uttering the words, "I love you." No responses were given. Frank made a physical recovery at the very least. Once, I came across a photograph of him in a news article. His hair grayer, his frame thinner, standing next to a younger woman whose soft smile and swollen belly spoke volumes. He had moved on, and then Zach vanished into thin air. I no longer search for his name online. There are days when fragments of dreams linger. Zach's breath warm against my neck, Frank's piercing gaze at the threshold, Rachel's voice trembling with the weight of betrayal. There are mornings when I rise, tears tracing my cheeks, yet the reason for my sorrow remains a mystery. Yet I brew coffee. I stroll. I inscribe my thoughts onto the page. I attend therapy sessions. On most days, that suffices, for there exists a certain liberation in embarking on a journey anew, unbound by the constraints of a predetermined path. Ceasing the effort to justify yourself to those who have already formed their conclusions. I harbor no illusions of redemption. I do not even seek tranquility. Yet, I have discovered a certain stillness, a sense of stability. Perhaps it is grace, or perhaps it is simply the lack of turmoil. Not all tales conclude with joy. There are tales that remain forever unfinished. They simply come to a halt, silently, in an unfamiliar city. Within the confines of a modest apartment, a woman embarks on a journey of rediscovery, learning to embrace life once more. Not for the sake of others, but for her own fulfillment. Perhaps that suffices. If this tale awakens something within you, be it sorrow, contemplation, or perhaps merely the faint echo of a recollection, kindly subscribe and share it. There exists a soul who may benefit from these words. It is never too late to start anew.